In this mini module, the topic is going to be child pornography. The topic of pornography has been researched over time, and one of the more famous quotes about pornography comes from Justice Potter Stewart, who, in debate about how do you know if something constitutes pornography, he famously said, "I know it when I see it." Now, while that may be the case with adult pornography, where it may be a little more ambiguous and vague, when we talk about child pornography, it is much clearer when lines are crossed and when activities become illegal. While child pornography has been a concern over time, with the advent of computers, and in particular the internet, child pornography escalated considerably. In fact, authors Quayle and Taylor have described the internet as the principal medium for distribution of child pornography. They make this claim for a number of reasons, and they back up this claim by demonstrating how computers expanded different aspects of child pornography. For example, with technological advancements and the computer revolution, computers allowed for the production of child pornography on a much broader and grander scale. The technology with the cameras and with the ability to edit and to create video much more quickly and much more seamlessly allowed child pornographers to much more easily produce their pornographic videos. In addition, computers also allowed for more simple storage of these illegal videos. As we know, files, all sorts of files, and the amount of storage that is now on computers has expanded considerably over time. And what this means is that in the past, whereas child pornographers would have to store their videos on film or videotape, and those could take up a lot of space and be hard to conceal or harder to conceal. With computers, child pornographers are able to store many videos. They're also able to distribute them much more easily than they were in the past. They're able to send their videos to others. Pornographers are able to receive videos much more easily than they were in the past, and this distribution has just expanded that network of potential child pornographers. It also has allowed for and expanded the number of potential victims, where child pornographers are now able to reach out to potential victims and reach out across state lines and reach out across international lines as well. And that ability to reach victims in a way that they weren't able to do prior to the technological revolution has certainly moved the offending opportunities forward. And also, it's created an opportunity for pedophiles to get to know one another. Now, what this does is when they get to know one another online, it provides them insulation. It gives them a subculture. It makes them feel like what they're doing isn't bad because they know other people who are doing it. And that subculture that is created online helps them to justify their behaviors and potentially creates opportunities for them to engage in additional behaviors. So the computer revolution certainly had the negative consequences of expanded child pornography. When we talk about the patterns surrounding child pornography, one author team, Wallach and Wallach's co-authors, found that nearly 250,000 of U.S. computers shared 120,418 child pornography files on a peer-to-peer site. And this is just an example of how prevalent child pornography seems to be. Over 80% shared relatively few files or participated only for a short period of time. Less than 1% made high annual contributions to the number of known files, child pornography files, available on the net and this included 100 and more files. Now, what this demonstrates is it's related to that notion that we call a career criminal in criminology and criminal justice, and that notion says that there's a small percent of people responsible for the vast majority of crimes. And when you look at child pornography and the distribution of child pornography, it's very, very likely that it's a small percentage of offenders that are distributing a vast majority of those files. And so the task at hand for criminal justice professionals is to locate that small percentage and to take them out of the business of child pornography. Now, another author team has talked about 3 types of child sex offenders within this pornography business. And this was Henshaw and Henshaw's co-authors. One of those is those that collect internet pornography. So they collect it and they store it. So the collectors of it. There's also those that actually engage in the child sexual abuse activities as part of the pornography. And certainly we'd see more severe penalties for these offenders, and they're the ones that are engaging in contact offenses and the various types of child sexual abuse. And we know that there's a high level of denial in these offense groups. There's also a history of victimization in them as well, but that does not dismiss their guilt. It does not at all dismiss their guilt. It does point to the need to treat victims and to try to break the cycle, but at the same time, we know that those that are engaging in these contact offenses are harming the victims in their present as well as their future. And then the third type is those that engage in contact offenses and pornography. So they're committing the sexual acts and they're recording it and then sharing it. The internet probably, along with the technological revolution, as we've stressed, made it much easier for these offenses to occur. So when we ask the question, why do offenders collect and view child pornography, we definitely have to think about how technology exacerbated the problem of child pornography. On the one hand, it made it easy to find the material online, much easier again than it would have been in the past. It also, as I've alluded to, provided opportunities for offenders to meet other pedophiles online and to feel less isolated about their behaviors. And that subculture of pornographers sort of allows their behaviors to grow and to expand. And as we've noted, it's made it easier to distribute materials online. Now, these sorts of points would sort of fall along the lines of a theory of routine activities, but we also can talk about and point to the neutralizations and the rationalizations that offenders make. Psychologists and psychiatrists have studied and interviewed child sex offenders and child sex pornographers, and they do point to that long list of rationalizations that they use. One of the common ones is they say that nobody was hurt, and they're actually seemingly convinced themselves that young victims aren't hurt by these actions. Another one is that they deny responsibility and say because they experienced this themselves, they also engage in those behaviors. Yet another one is that the law should not forbid these things. So there are offenders that say, yes, we did it, we're responsible for it, but it shouldn't be illegal. And they really, truly have no moral compass that suggests it's inappropriate to engage in these types of activities. Still, another excuse and neutralization that offenders make is that they'll point to the idea that they can't control their urges, and that it's this medical-driven sort of addiction that they have. And whether there's not a great deal of research that would support the idea that there is an addiction, but in their minds they justify it in that sense. So I share this little aside simply because while technology made it easy, we need to stress that it's the interactions between technology and human behavior that contribute to child pornography. Who's doing it? More males, and that's probably not surprising. Predominantly they're Caucasian males, and there may be some minority males engaged in these offenses, but predominantly it's Caucasian males that are engaging in child pornography. Compared to other child sexual abusers, there have been studies. Webb's co-authors found that child pornographers, have more psychological difficulties in adulthood, psychological issues coping and dealing with anxiety and those sorts of things. They also have fewer prior convictions for sex offenses, and they also are less likely to commit new offenses after conviction. So while Webb's research shows these findings, it is important to note that the study is a little bit dated. In today's world, with the growth of the internet, it would be important to think about whether we'd find these same findings. But in general, there are studies that show that child pornographers who don't engage in contact offenses are easier to rehabilitate and easier to keep out of trouble in the future. Now, they also have a higher amount of depression and interpersonal deficits, and they score lower on aggression and dominance scores. That's not surprising. This was researched by Magaletta. The reason that's not surprising is simply because of the fact that they're not engaging in contact offenses. Contact offenses are aggressive, and they demonstrate power. And most sex offenses that are physical sex offenses, they're not about sexual activity, they're about power and control. And so when we see the pure child pornographers who aren't engaging in these contact offenses, we shouldn't be surprised that they're not as aggressive or that they don't have as high of dominance in terms of those dominance scales. So we can think for a moment about how other disciplines would view child pornography in this interdisciplinary perspective on cybercrime. And information technology, a technologist might be interested in maybe looking at the data science around child pornography. And some have been, from a data science perspective, very helpful in developing algorithms and developing techniques that criminologists can use to figure out or digital forensics experts can use to figure out if computers have harmful, obscene material on them. Businesses would be interested in a number of different aspects. Certainly, there's the occasional time when you find a particular person at a particular business that's been found to have pornography, and that business experiences negative publicity as a result of it. So businesses have a very crucial vested interest in making sure their workers aren't engaging in these and the sharing or saving of pornographic material, because it can harm the business. Philosophers would be interested in the types of responses we have and the moral arguments that people try to justify about why pornography is okay or why, versus the more universal argument that it's not okay. Engineers would be interested in developing physical systems and strategies that we might use to stop child pornographers from engaging in the behavior. Computer scientists would be interested perhaps in software that would help to assist criminal justice professionals in their efforts to supervise sex offenders, and how we might develop software that makes it so offenders can't engage in these offenses, while criminal justice officials would be interested in finding out who these offenders are, why they're committing these acts, what the connection is between the viewing of this behavior and the participation in the behavior, how probation and parole officers can better respond to these offenses, how we can better supervise and detect these offenses, both among those that have committed the offenses in the past, but as well as those who might be potential